This is the Imitated Radio Hour. I'm your host, Julian Fade.
And I'm also here. I'm Corey Matthewson.
They say, to live a creative life, you must lose your fear of being wrong.
We have lost that fear.
We speak to world-renowned experts you've never heard of.
Because, well, they're improvisers.
They don't know what they're talking about, but that doesn't stop them from pretending they do.
Each episode, we bring you made-up facts, uncited research, completely improvised.
Welcome to the Imitated Radio Hour. Most people try their best to avoid sinful behavior. But our guest this hour lived in 7 straight years of sin, 1 year for each of the deadly sins. His recent book, 7 Years of Behaving Badly, has sent shockwaves through the literary world. Jamie Cavanagh talks to us about the guilty pleasures and the challenges of confronting sin head on. Jamie, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here on the podcast. Congratulations on the recent book. It was quite a page turner. What I want to start off with is, let's start with the groundwork. What's your favorite sin and why?
Oh, boy. I mean, what a question. You might as well ask me what my favorite movie is or my favorite vacation I've ever taken. Really, it's, the beautiful thing about sinning is it's an action of the moment, which makes it a very intimate and emotional exercise. It's really suited to how you are now, which is actually what made my experiment so difficult. It's not so much the crossing of the threshold mentally to sin. It is committing the sin that does not necessarily appease your appetite in the moment, if you can understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, I find that I'm craving lust, as I think is pretty common.
That's interesting. We heard that it was a pretty exciting, life-changing moment that pushed you into delving deeper into the 7 deadly sins. What was that life-changing moment?
Oh, yes. Well, I was brought up, I think, an upstanding young fellow here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I grew up in a middle-class household, very secure, strong education, good friends. My parents were well communicated and emotional, and I feel like I got an average, if not much better than privileged upbringing. That being said, I found myself experiencing an overwhelming sense of I hesitate to say emptiness because it does make it sound like such a bummer. But there was something missing from my spirit. One day I got hit by a car while I was riding my bike to work, and I closed my eyes and everything went dark, and I had this feeling like I hadn't really lived. And I thought, well, what is this? What is this feeling of this absent feeling? And I thought, I have lived safely my entire life. And so that was when I sort of grew to understand that the big thing I was yearning for was conflict.
Now, is sinning the opposite of safety?
Well, I mean, I suppose it depends on who you ask, doesn't it? If you were brought up in a Judeo-Christian household, then sinning, yes, is the exact opposite of safety, at least for your mortal soul. But for those of us that are not subscribers to any particular religion, really, it's not that sins are the absence of safety. It's that they're actually, they're just sort of a fine framework for things that scare us. Yeah, so I think it has less to do with safety and more to do with fear, if I'm honest.
Interesting. And you had been living a life void of fear prior to diving into 7 years of living in sin.
I didn't even know what fear was, Julian. Like I said, I was brought up, I was a coddled little baby, born with a silver spoon in my mouth and a silver knife in my butthole. I was a protected young lad, and it wasn't until I felt the discomfort of feeling every bone in my body break, of feeling my soul momentarily leave my body, the great tearing of human spirit from flesh, that I understood that I had never even felt discomfort once in my life. It was all relative. And so I found this list, this old list, ancient list of behaviors and activities that are to be avoided and to teach our children to avoid. And I dove headlong into this list. As you said, one sin for every year, exercising it as you would a muscle, as you would the tissue of your body. I was exercising the dark side of my soul. And dark is in quotation marks there.
Now, you took this list, and was the order of the sins on the list the order that you followed year by year by year?
Yes, I'll tell you what, I wasn't picky. I thought, we're going to get through this thing. It's going to be hard. And I just went to the Wikipedia page, and whatever order they were in, that's what I wrote down in my notebook and I put down in my calendar.
You watched the Brad Pitt movie Seven to prepare for this book. What was it about that movie that inspired your work and specifically your year of envy?
Well, I mean, listen, who doesn't love Brad Pitt? Find me. Do you love Brad Pitt?
Yes, of course.
I do as well.
Come on. I mean, if there's a teacher that you could have in your life, if he's going to teach you one thing, I want it to be Brad Pitt teaching me about the 7 deadly sins. Because, my God, that man is sexy. Oh, so that's number one. Number two, I'm not afraid to say it, I was a big fan of Kevin Spacey back then. All right, I know that's taboo to say now, but hey, back then we didn't know what we know now, and Brad Pitt and Kevin Spacey made a fine duo as far as I was concerned. Yeah, so it's a pretty good movie. That's mostly my reasoning. It's about the 7 deadly sins, you know.
Well, yes, that part does seem clear.
Yeah, that was actually surprising to me that it was about the 7. I didn't expect it to be. I just like I mentioned, I was a big fan of Brad Pitt and Kevin Spacey. I was like, oh my God, this is about exactly the project that I'm engaging in. This is amazing.
Yes. The movie makes much more sense to me now.
Yes.
Interesting. Can I ask about a specific chapter in your book?
Oh, please.
The chapter documenting your year of sloth. It's only 2.5 pages long and contains only the word with 857 G's, bookended by 1 U and 1 H. What did you hope to impart with this particular choice?
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a difficult year. That was probably the hardest year. And really not a lot got done, if I'm honest. I started the year January 1, waking up in my bed. By January 5th, I had made my way to the kitchen to fetch myself some breakfast.
Wow.
Which was much needed by that time, and then January 7th, I finally got to the bathroom, and by then I was starving again, back to the kitchen. I ended up pretty much posting up in my apartment kitchen for the entire year because just to save time, I expelled things into the sink and washed it down, and I ate from the fridge and ordered food from the front door. Mostly, I stood at my kitchen island waiting for time to go by.
I want to turn now to your detractors. They say they don't disagree with you so much as they say that the world cannot be broken down into saints and sinners. Is life truly this binary?
I mean, listen, clearly I have a bit of a warped sense of morality. I engaged in purely sinful behavior for 7 direct years. in a row. I don't know that I subscribe to the idea of right and wrong, purely action and experience. I have a lot of people who are ready to argue with me at any sort of given moment in time, and I am, I'm a competitor. I don't mind exchanging jabs and barbs for the sake of good conversation and excitement. But I do agree with many of my competitors, we'll call them, in the aspersion that perhaps the seven deadly sins could be an improved upon title, such as the seven acts of naughtiness, or the seven brothers of no goodness. I've pitched a number of new titles for these sins over the years, and it's just one of those things. It's like a stick stuck in the mud. It's just sort of become part of our culture, and I don't have much faith that my studies are going to influence the title.
Now, you had several run-ins throughout your 7 years with the law. Which of the seven deadly sins were most at odds with the laws of normal society?
Wrath. Wrath was definitely, that was tough. Clearly, there is an issue with being wrathful toward humans, especially, if you consider maintaining that behavior for an entire year, it would become very difficult. You'd have to be pretty proficient with wrath. So what I ended up doing was, I thought, I can't be wrathful towards humans for 365 days in a row. Instead, I will go to the woods and I will be wrathful towards woodland creatures, rabbits, ducks, beavers, deer, squirrels.
Things that don't matter.
Things that don't matter. But as it turns out, these things do matter to a very, very niche select few people, known as the park rangers, who then called the police, and it turns out there are some laws restricting taking out wrathful behavior on the beavers. Was the one that the police couldn't seem to stomach the most, which I
really.
It's just so dumb, I thought they're just so dumb. Who would care?
Who will miss them?
Who will miss them?
Well, what irony to be damned by your own salvation.
And Corey, you are going to love my next book, which is the eighth deadly sin: irony. It's I'm just coming off. 3 days ago, I came off my 1 year of living in irony. Experiment, the follow-up book to my 7 deadly sins. Yes.
Isn't that ironic? You wouldn't believe. That's incredible.
Yes. It's perfect time to plug the book. But buy the one that's come out, and make sure to subscribe for my new one.
Tell us how you embody this new eighth sin, as you put it, irony.
Yes, well, I spent a lot of time thinking about that. Who can I surround myself with to best engulf myself in pure, unadulterated irony? And so I found myself in Portland, Oregon, where you'll find that there are people engaging in irony in every capacity that you can imagine. They're cutting their lawn with mechanical lawn mowing kits. They've got their mustaches all waxed up like it's 1865. It's really something. It's really, really something. People engaging in old technology just because it's quirky and makes a good Instagram photo. The world is rich with irony, and it's only because it has not been defined yet as a 7 deadly sin that it goes unnoticed.
Interesting. You are truly pushing the boundaries of sin and sinful behavior.
Yes, I did. That reminds me of a failed book. I started a couple of years ago working on a book about pushing boundaries, and it just proved to be unfruitful. Yeah.
It was too much for you, even.
Too much for I just felt like just leave it alone.
Sure.
Yeah. Leave the boundaries where they are.
Leave the boundaries where they are.
Sure. So, your one book, a major success. This latest book sounds like it's going to be a breakout hit. What is next for Jamie Cavanagh now that you've accomplished something that nobody thought was possible or even wanted you to do?
Well, I mean, first of all, let me clarify. I do hope my new book on irony is a breakout hit, but I would really prefer it only being a breakout hit with those people that knew about it before it was big. First of all.
Mm-hmm.
Second, what am I doing now? Well, not a lot. When you live your life that focused for a year at a time, it's a great relief, and almost the relief is the reward of releasing that energy and sort of returning back to being normal and good. And in fact, I am not sure that I can go the rest of my life. I'm not sure that I can go 1 year without doing another year of sinning. I feel like this is going to be an on and off pattern for me for the rest of my life. Perhaps not focusing on one sin at a time, but I think I'm going to do 1 year of charity work, being a kind and decent, upstanding citizen, being polite, doing the right thing, being patient, and then I'm going to do a year of fucking and squirrel killing, I think, and I think this balance is going to sustain me for my whole life.
Absolutely. Some people try to remain on the median, and you are saying maybe the extremes and the oscillation is more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, hey, what is the universe but entropy and enthalpy, and there are people constantly trying to pull things together and control things and make things make sense, and thus that we need a similar force the other way of people who are wanting to push those comforts and shake up the universe and give the stardust a new chance to align itself into a new future for all of us.
Jamie Cavanagh's new book is called 7 Years of Behaving Badly, and ironically, he has another book on irony coming out soon. Jamie, I feel great pride in having spoken to you, and I feel envious of all 7 years of your bad behavior. Thank you for joining us here today.
Oh my God, Julian, how long were you waiting to say that one?
The Imitated Radio Hour is produced by Rapid Fire Theater. It is not affiliated in any way with NPR or the official TED organization.
So please, don't sue us. We're online at imitatedradiohour.com. For Corey Mathewson,
for Julian Fade,
this has been the Imitated Radio Hour.